This video is to accompany the Blossom Beanie, which is in the Spring 2023 TOFT Quarterly magazine. Also can be bought as a separate kit. And this is a really fun stitch to do. It's called a Jasmine Stitch. You're making these big puffs of stitches that form this lovely flower formation. It's a really stretchy fabric. So we're going to be starting off with a 2x2 front post back post rib. There is a video for that you can watch if you want to just crib upon front post back post. I'm not going to cover that bit. What I'm going to start with is how to do one of these puff stitches, and that is one of these individual little clusters here that we go on to repeat to form the flowers. So what you need to do is you need to wrap around your hook first. You go into the center of the flower. Now, sometimes, say you're coming off the rib, you will actually be going into a specific stitch. But what we've done for you is we've written out every single round of instruction when you're coming off there. So you'll know which stitch you're going into. Once you get onto the main body of the flowers, you will be working into the center. So wrap around your hook, go into the center of the flower like that. Yarn over, and then you bring it up to about 2 centimeters. And that's the important thing, because that's actually what will set the size of your hat. So if you do them 1 centimeter, your hat's going to be much more fitting of a child's head. If you go bigger than your 2 centimeters, then your hat will get too big for the standard size. You can check this tension because each flower needs to be about 4 centimeters in diameter when you finished it, because it's 2 puffs either side. So come up like that, wrap round again and go in and through a second time. And you see how I'm using my finger to hold all these loops in place as I do it, because that's what you want to make sure you keep on your hook, is all these different loops. So you go through again and pull it up to that point. And then this is the bit that's quite important to make the stitch look neat. And that's the fact that we're going to actually double crochet into this strand here. So this final bit, hold on to that thread there that's coming off your yarn hand, yarn over and bring that through the loops that you've got on there. And then what you need to do is take your hook back there and actually double crochet in there. And what that does is it makes those puffs lovely and defined. It means you've got nice neat centers to all your flowers. The stitch does work without that, but that's what's going to make them much neater. So at the start of every new row, you'll be doing one of those puff stitches in isolation. But from then onwards, how we build these flowers is by doing 3 of them together. But the thing to wrap your head round is the fact that when you are crocheting, you're not going to be crocheting a whole flower. When you do 3 of them, you're going to be doing the top of the flower above you, 1 leg off this flower on the right and 1 off the flower on the left of that at the same time. So although you're doing 3, they're not rolling into one of these flowers, and you'll see what I mean as I do the first one. So first, after we've done that double crochet that locks it in place like we did before, we must chain 1 initially. Then draw your yarn up again to the 2 centimeter point, so you've got it on the hook like that. And then we're going to repeat a puff stitch, but into this hole here, so into the center of this flower first. So wrap your yarn around your hook, go in, grab your yarn and bring it up to that same layer again. So that's 1, 2 and 3. But what you're going to do this time is you're not going to finish that off. You're going to hold that on there, because we're actually going to go and do a second one into this next hole along here. So we're going to go round the hook and in this hole and draw up to the 2 centimeters. So that's 1, 2 and 3. But we're not yet finished. We're actually going to do it a 3rd time into this next one along 2. So you go, hold those 2 on there, come up again, round the hook, 1, 2 and 3. And now this is the bit that's a bit fiddly to begin with, but you will get used to it the more you do. So hold on to this here exactly as we did that first time on the single. Yarn over and holding onto that yarn, bring that right the way through all of those on your hook like that. So you're going through the first 2 and through that one like that. Then lock that in place by doing your double crochet that we did before. That holds the center of that next flower in place. And then you'll chain 1 and you'll be starting again. So I'm going to do that one more time in one smooth motion so you can see it. So I've already done my chain 1. So bring your yarn up to the 2 centimetre point like that, wrap around the yarn, in through the hole, and that's 1, 2, 3. Keep that on your hook onto the next hole along, which is there. So wrap round, 1, 2, and 3. Hold that on your hook. Next one along. 1. It does use a lot of yarn is what you'll find, so you will need a nice long lead on that. 2 and 3. Then this is where you need to hold this bit to make sure you don't lose it as we go through. We yarn over, bring it through all of those that are on your hook like that, and then double crochet into the bit you've been holding on to. And then you're ready. Well, you can do your chain 1 and then you're ready to start again. Now, what I will say is you can see that my stitch marker is here from where we did that rib. And it's by no means essential to use a stitch marker when doing this, because you are doing that 3 repeat over and over again. And you'll actually find it might confuse you more, because your stitch marker will make a huge leap like that diagonally across the round, because it is obviously a lot of these 2 centimetre lengths. So it's going to be jumping a long way round to round. So I wouldn't worry too much about using your stitch marker and keeping that with you. You can leave that down there on your rib. So the last thing we've just got to master is the decrease. So when we're doing a decrease, we're going to start in exactly the same way for the first 2 stages of what we've been doing. So what you need to do, bring that hook up just like we've been doing and go wrap around, 1, 2, 3. So we've done our puff in there. Hold that on your hook and then go into the next one. 1, 2 and 3. And then what we're actually going to do is we're going to work 2 of those wraps into this one, 2 into that one, and we're going to decrease those 2 together. So this is like a small puff rather than the full 3 ones that you're repeating 3 times. We're just going to do 2 wraps into these 2 all the time, keeping this on your hook. So wrap around your hook again and do 1, 2, then onto that next one. And you will feel like you've got an awful lot of wraps on your hook at this point. So 1, 2, and then exactly the same as we did to finish off when you're doing the 3 repeats. So hold that bit of yarn there as you yarn over, bring it through all of them together like that. You might have to wiggle it a little bit to get it through. I've got 1 caught there, that's it. And then what you need to do is just do your double crochet into that to lock it into place and neaten it up. And then you chain 1. So that's how you're going to do the decrease. It obviously turns those 2 little halves into 1 like that. So that's how you get that lovely curved shape on the top of the hat. And you really won't see, it becomes very invisible in amongst those lovely jasmine shaped flowers. So the last thing to cover is how to do our end of round and then the final gathering of the stitches. So the last thing just to clarify is when you have finished that whole round and you're coming back, you've obviously got something that looks like this. It looks like someone's taken a bite out of your hat. So what you're going to be doing here is exactly what we've been doing, as in coming up before you begin. You work 1 into here, 1 into here, 1 into here, so exactly as we've been doing with our 3 repeats, but then you actually do a 4th one to finish off this one up here, and that will pull that all together. That's why you then have to start with 1 on the beginning of that next round before you do your repeats of 3. So just to show you that again, so you're going to pull up and do exactly what we've been doing. So 1, 2, 3 in there, but you actually do a 4th one on the end of your round. You then do your 1 to begin with, like the very beginning of this video, and then you go off on your repeats of 3s. So I hope you really enjoy making that stitch. What I'm going to show you just as the very last thing is here's one in violet. This is such a good pattern for showcasing the new pastels. This is Primrose here for anyone that's not seen those before. That's Primrose, which is the pastel yellow, Peony, which is the pastel pink, and then this is Violet, the one that I've got here. When you finish off, you'll be left with the gathered stitches like this, and all you need to do is run the last bit of yarn through the centres of those flowers. I think one other thing that's worth mentioning is this pattern does use a lot of yarn because of the nature of having all of those wraps, so you will be joining in new balls of yarn as you go along, as you go through the pattern. And the best place to join in your yarn, if you are going to swap to a new ball of yarn, is when you do that double crochet that locks in the stitch. change then before you do your chain 1 to go into your next puff, and that way the end will be locked in. You'll just be able to have your 2 ends and sew them in afterwards, no issues at all. Well, I hope you very much enjoy learning this new Jasmine stitch and showing off your beanies.